Coming up next on the Pro Wrestling Report Primetime, we've got feedback and results from this past Sunday's Fastlane, this past Monday's Raw, and this past Tuesday's SmackDown. Another WWE Hall of Fame inductee is announced, and a lot of top free agents making news in the world of professional wrestling. The monumental edition of the Pro Wrestling Report Primetime starts right here, right now on Fight TV. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Pro Wrestling Report Primetime. Damian Nelson sitting alongside David Octavius the Tiberius, the alleged backyard, one-time knockout, straight-edge hardcore Hall of Famer hero. David, how are you here in this month of March?
March has been fantastic.
It's the 9th of March, specifically. 8th of March? 9th of March.
The 9th of March?
That was last week.
The 9th of March.
I don't know what a night is.
9th.
It's like a moop?
No, March 9th. What's a mook?
I said moop.
Oh, I was like, that sounds completely racial.
Bubble boy. All right, let's get right down to it, folks, with this week's big story, and that is last Sunday's WWE Fastlane, which took place right here in the Milwaukee at the BMO Harris Bradley Center. And David Hero, a lot of people have a lot of bad things to say about Fastlane. Now, it's a little different for us. We were there live in attendance, and we were able to absorb the show as it was presented to a live event audience. However, let's talk about what had happened, and maybe we can figure out why so many people were upset about the goings-on of Fastlane. Firstly, a brand new WWE Universal Champion was crowned.
How about that?
In one Bill Goldberg. And this was a point of contention for a lot of fans as he defeated Kevin Owens in very short fashion
22 seconds.
Once the bell rang.
22 seconds.
Can you explain to the world, to the masses, to the people, to the humanoids out there, why, A, they should have known that was going to happen, and B, why it had to happen that way?
Well, to be honest, you said this the last few weeks, that Bill Goldberg had to beat Kevin Owens quickly. Otherwise, it buries everything Bill Goldberg has done with Brock Lesnar. It buries Brock Lesnar. Brock Lesnar then becomes a second-rate star instead of a top guy. Because if he can't beat Kevin Owens in less than a minute 22, then what does that say about Brock Lesnar?
It says a lot about Brock Lesnar, which is why the match had to go the way it did. I did like the way, though, that they Kevin Owens borrowed some time, if you will, before the matchup.
He did.
By teasing
He did a great
Goldberg.
job. And you know, let's be honest, it was well done. I mean, it made sense with Jericho coming out, distracting.
How about that surprise?
That was a surprise for a lot of people.
He wasn't going to be in town.
You know, and he got him with the spear and the jackhammer, and you couldn't help but just smile and laugh, thinking it's 2017, and Bill Goldberg
To a new audience.
has put in less than 5 minutes in 3 matches,
To a new audience.
and he is now the Universal Heavyweight Champion.
To a new audience.
Not that new.
20 years. 17 years. 12 years. Whatever it was.
It's been 15.
Okay, really since 2004. It's been 17 years.
WrestleMania 20.
2004, I believe it was,
So
correct?
that means it's 13 years.
Oh, super. Still a long time.
I'm
new
a
audience, new
mathematician,
generation.
obviously.
So do you watch MathNet after school when you were growing up?
MathNet?
Yeah. on
No,
Square
I have
One?
a calculator.
Did you have a P?
Nope.
What was the fancy one that they made everybody go out and buy?
The
T180, P90.
That was
T-dozen?
very confusing for me because
He
it
doesn't
came
do
with
care
a
anymore?
manual.
Folks, another
Not-
surprise in a new women's champion on the Raw side of things. We got to stick to time. We got a podcast coming up after this. More on that later.
What?
Brand new women's champion not a brand new women's champion as I and many others would have predicted because the streak of 16-0 for Charlotte at pay-per-view events is now over. Bayley wins, but she doesn't do so cleanly. She pins her cleanly, but there's shenanigans that lead up to it.
Well, yes, because Dana Brooke came down, then Sasha Banks came down, and Sasha looked different coming down after her beatdown from Nia Jax.
What do you mean different?
She just looked different. I didn't recognize her when she came down the ramp. She looked different to me for some reason. I thought it was a new.
Was it because it was live and not on TV?
It could have been, and you know what?
TV adds 10 pounds, you know. Well, you know.
Yes, absolutely. That's why these lights are ridiculous here. No, I mean, Bayley and Charlotte, it wasn't great. They didn't really tell that good of a story.
Well, let's preface this for all the people watching out there and listening. You hate Bayley.
No, I don't hate Bayley.
Oh.
I just...
Who's the guy I've been sitting to for the last several weeks that hates
have
Bayley?
I ever once said I hated her?
She doesn't look like she should be there. She shouldn't be there. She's not championship
I hate
material.
one person, that's SBL, and that's completely different.
And CM Punk and Finn Balor.
No, I don't hate Finn Balor. I don't know Finn Balor. It's not my fault he's a
Here we
buck
go.
90.
There it is. Jab again.
It's not a jab. It's the truth. CM Punk, that's your guy.
You were saying about Bailey and
I'm just
Charlotte,
saying that,
if anything else,
that the match for me was rather uneventful. I thought Charlotte, I can't believe how much Charlotte has become the star of the women's division.
There is
on
no
both
doubt
brands.
that Charlotte is not just one of the best female performers in the wrestling business right now, but one of the overall
How
best
about that
performers in
robe
the
she
wrestling
came to the ring
business.
with?
You know, many of her robes are made from Ric Flair's old robes.
I'm sure they are. Ooh. Is that healthy?
Do you know what I have intel that tells me, and this is
that healthy?
freaking great, is that, to that point, that Ric Flair's been on the road with Charlotte at
Yes.
WWE shows for several weeks.
Yeah, she babysits him.
Not when she's at the show, though, when he's sitting at the hotel bar,
Oh, yeah. Well, that's completely different.
which he did in Green Bay this past Monday night. And since the show was over, he left. So it's like mom's at work, so the kid can play. But be that as it may, another surprise, another thing that may have made a lot of you not like this show as much as maybe you could have or should have, Roman Reigns, the endorsed Roman Reigns, gets a clean pinfall victory over Braun Strowman. But Braun Strowman may have actually won the
Braun
match.
Strowman was a legit star in that match. He showed that he is more than just a big, jacked up dude. He has physical prowess. He's athletic. He can do stuff. And let's face it, if Braun Strowman doesn't miss that top rope splash, which he's never tried before in the last 2 years he's been with the company, he wins that match. Braun Strowman beat himself
And that's important. Why?
because it kept both guys strong. Braun Strowman made a mistake. That's how Roman Reigns capitalized.
And we'd see the next night why both men needed to remain strong on Raw, which we'll talk about in the next segment. But also at Fastlane this past Sunday night, Samoa Joe gets an expected victory over the endorsed Sami Zayn. But again, Zayn and Joe shined in that matchup.
Did they?
I forgot. He hates Sami Zayn.
I don't
as well.
hate Sami Zayn. I just don't know
You've
what.
called him a taxi driver.
He looks like a taxi driver.
How? Because he
wore
wears a hat?
the same hat
Any
as
man
you.
that wears a hat with a beard from where he's from looks like a taxi driver? Is that what you're saying? So put a hat on you, and you're you're looking at me.
I wasn't saying because he's Palestinian.
I
That's
didn't
why
say-
he drives a
I said
taxi cab.
he's from Canada. I said from Canada. I said where he's from, not what his nationality is.
He has Tizik written across the back of his tights.
Is that some type of word, language of some
Yeah,
sort?
it's Arabic. You can't read that? From
I can't.
left to right.
Wait, it's read backwards?
No, it's read from left to right.
Like any other word is read?
From right to left, right to left. You're confusing me because you
Clearly.
made it about race with Sami Zayn.
I didn't make it about race. I made it about his country of origin.
And there's a lot of Canadian taxi drivers?
I haven't done the research. I'll check with the White House and see what they'd like to say about it.
Oh, that would be interesting.
It would be.
Yes. Where were we on this?
Well, I don't even care what
Sami
you think anymore about
Zayn
Joe and
has not had a big win in a long time since he beat Seth Rollins to get in the Rumble.
Yep.
He's Tito Santana.
He is a good, not placeholder, but a good person to insert when you need him, right?
Tito Santana is a former multi-time champion. Tag team, Intercontinental,
flying
tag
jalapeno,
team.
as Bobby Heenan would have said.
But I don't know, is Sami Zayn going to win gold? Do you think, I mean, maybe he should,
He is endorsed, so gold
maybe
is
he
in
should
his
cut
future.
weight and go to 205 Live?
A surprise matchup, one we didn't expect to see, but I thought told more of a story than people are giving it credit for, and that was the Big Show versus Rusev and a bit of tension between Rusev and Jinder Mahal.
Why? You got to keep the foreign guys together.
So my earlier comment, which you said was racially motivated,
But you need good heels.
why do you need to keep the foreign guys together?
Because you need
minus
good
the
heels.
Orient Express, minus the Pan Am Connection, minus Strike.
Sheik and Volkov, okay, the Koloffs.
Conquistadors.
Yeah, you need good,
But we don't
strong
know if they were
heels.
actually conquistadorian.
And you got the Shining Stars.
Your overall thoughts on WWE Fastlane from this
You know
Sunday
what?
on the WWE Network? We were live in Milwaukee.
It was a solid show. I can understand
Your
what the
enthusiasm's about to knock me over.
no.
It was a
no.
solid show.
It was solid. It was what we expected. It was what we thought it was going to be.
It was better for me. Remember going into it, I said, this card completely sucks. There's nothing I want to see except for Goldberg win, and I know that's going to happen.
And I will say this: the Milwaukee crowd was hot.
Near sellout, if not
no.
total sellout.
I don't care about that. They were loud.
They were. Well,
It sounded like it was a sold-out crowd.
the people watching, I don't know if you've had a chance to rewatch it on the network. I have not, but people have said that the crowd was a little dead, a little flat.
But they couldn't hear what we could hear. We were there.
Are you saying WWE has the opportunity to manipulate crowd noise?
Absolutely, they do.
Goldberg.
Yes.
It's weird hearing that live for the first time. I think that was the first time I saw Goldberg live. Not for you, because you saw him at WrestleMania 20. But I think that was the first time I saw Goldberg live.
You never went to Nitro?
And here's what's interesting. WCW didn't exist. Here's what's interesting. A lot of fans also said, and we appreciate all the fans we did see on Sunday in Milwaukee. More news on that later.
How about the Hammerhead?
There were no Sharks there.
Oh, there was. The Hammerhead fan.
I am
with the ball peen?
Don't know which fan exactly you're talking about at that time.
Oh, she was your fan. There's no question.
What was presented to me as a thought and a reason for perhaps why so many people were there, it was more of an audience that I thought would be there live and more interest in the show, was so many people haven't seen Goldberg live in their lives that this was their first chance to do so. So that tells you the marquee power of having a Goldberg is in WWE.
Keep in mind, Cal's 14. He was a year.
Yeah.
When Goldberg was there. Mm-hmm. And Cal is a Goldberg fan. He's like, oh, he's jacked, and it was awesome and impressive and the whole thing. He has a new audience. And that, and you can
That's what I started this segment with.
But that's
what I started this segment with.
No.
How far back do your memory banks go? Like 12 seconds or 18 seconds?
I've told you it's great, it's just very short. But here's the thing.
I've heard that before too.
Here's the thing. It's the video game is what made Goldberg a star.
I will give you that.
They haven't done a good job of packaging him up and reintroducing him to the audience.
He beat Lesnar in 1 minute 28 seconds. The man who ended the streak, the 1-21-1 at WrestleMania, that packaged him up and reintroduced him to the audience.
Maybe. It's the video game.
That is this week's top. No, it's the big story, David Hero. It's the big story.
It was the big story.
It's the big story. That was what this was.
Coming up next on Primetime, it's this week's Raw Report, SmackDown Report, Hot News, and the 3 Count.
The biggest party event of WrestleMania weekend is back. WWE Hall of Famer Kevin Nash presents Shenanigans Orlando. Join Nash and his friends for a huge VIP party Saturday, April 1st. Party with the biggest stars of wrestling at the pub at Point Orlando on International Drive to kick off WrestleMania weekend. Don't miss Shenanigans Orlando, hosted by Kevin Nash. Tickets are available now and going fast at PWRshow.com. That's PWRshow.com.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Pro Wrestling Report Primetime. David Hero and Damian Nelson sitting here before you on the Fight TV app. F-I-T-E, Fight.
That was the longest 30 seconds of my life, by the way.
Was it the longest 30 seconds of your life, or was it the longest 11 minutes of your life? You went 6 minutes over in that last segment. We are tuned in here for reasons we'll explain later to a 30-minute show, and now we're a 41-minute show. Yes. How do you feel about yourself, David?
Well, I'm not getting paid anymore for it, so it kind of sucks.
Oh, your overtime got cut?
Yeah.
Oh, is that to pay for the new healthcare plan?
That wasn't my fault. I blame Frank Cosentino. He did a terrible job of lobbying for us.
We have a lobbyist?
Oh, yeah.
That can't be a part of this program anymore if we have a lobbyist.
Well, then you can just move along.
And who are you going to get to replace me?
I'll do it myself.
Ladies and gentlemen, if that were the case, there'd be 2 shows remaining in our episodic broadcast schedule.
Wait a minute.
You'd lose
interest.
That
was a jab.
That was not a jab. That was a solid punch to the face.
No,
this is how we go 11 minutes. Ladies and gentlemen, it is now time for this week's WWE Raw Report. And this past Monday night on Raw, a lot happened. But most importantly, The Undertaker returned and confronted Braun Strowman, who then was exited out of the ring by his own devices. And then confronting The Undertaker was his opponent at WrestleMania, Roman Reigns.
Do you like that?
I love it.
Did you like it?
Let me be honest, though. Roman Reigns is endorsed. And those of you who hate Roman Reigns because he's the chosen one are not smart enough in the business. Those of you who hate him because you don't think his skills are good or his promos are good, that's a different story. But when Braun and Undertaker were face-to-face, I saw it. It sometimes you don't see it till you see it. I saw it. And I said, that's a pairing right there. When Taker and Reigns were face-to-face, without Reigns' words, I didn't see it. Once Reigns spoke, I saw it.
Well, yeah, because that's how they tell the stories.
This is my yard now, with all due respect.
And that was well done. I liked how Braun Strowman became the cowardly heel and backed away.
But you know what? He did so. Okay, was he cowardly or was he respectful of the point he can't be yet in his career? That is against the Undertaker.
He walked away. That's what it was.
Slowly.
He was not going to get into a fisticuffs with the Taker.
So did that help or hurt Roman Reigns?
That wasn't about Roman Reigns. That was about
They kept them separate.
that was about the rub of Braun Strowman and the Undertaker.
So here's what I'll say about this and WrestleMania so far. And there was a lot of chatter. I was actually chatting with our dear friend Jimmy Corderas on Twitter about this during Raw Monday night. When unopposed or unobstructed, if you will, WWE can make such a deliberate and solid build to WrestleMania. Whether you like what they're building or not, one can't argue that all the stories right now are logical and meaningful, and you can understand why the conflicts exist enough to have a match at the blow-off show, which is WrestleMania. And that's great. Last year that was not the case.
Every match has a build to it.
And last year that was not the case because all the injuries and the settlements that they had to do to get to WrestleMania. It's almost like they wanted to get through WrestleMania last year as opposed to getting to WrestleMania this year.
I agree. Last year was bad.
Yeah. But again, agree or disagree with the matches, the contest. And a lot of people are saying, oh, Goldberg-Lesnar is going to be a 3-minute match. I don't want to see that. How long did Tyson's fights go? How long does Floyd Mayweather's fights go?
Oh, but hold on a second now. That's a completely different sport. That
Yeah,
stuff
because I
is
paid
fake.
more for it on pay-per-view.
Those fights are
Post
rigged.
Don King days.
20 seconds, just in case you were wondering.
I appreciate that.
Well,
and
I'm just trying
shocked
to help.
that you're paying attention.
I do sometimes.
That's why we have extra overtime coming up later.
I
because
can't wait
if
for
we don't
that.
I'm sure you are. So, are you happy with the matchup that we knew or that was rumored to be
No,
happening, but is now
I don't want to
official?
see Taker and
Undertaker.
Reigns.
Why not?
I just
want to see Undertaker and Strowman.
No, not even that. Right now, I mean, as much as I appreciate the Undertaker, as much as I love, him being a part of WrestleMania, since the streak is done, it's uneventful.
Really?
Yeah.
So numbers matter to you.
Numbers are huge. And now it's like, well, okay, with Roman Reigns and Undertaker.
Is that Roman or Undertaker calling you?
No, if it was Taker, it would just vibrate.
No dongs?
No dongs.
That's good.
There's
You
no
shouldn't use
dongs on
those.
my phone. That's no. It doesn't make. There's no sense of urgency. Taker's not in jeopardy of losing anything. Where's the heat in the match?
No, you're right. His matches at WrestleMania now are just an exhibition, right?
Yes.
Because you're not going to build that big a streak up again, but maybe, what is he now? 2-0?
2-0.
Or 23-1? It's interesting. Interesting.
That's what I'm here
David
for,
Hero.
is to make things interesting.
So, we're going to, actually, you don't know this yet, but we're going to talk more about the goings-on of Raw later on in our new PrimeTime podcast, David Hero. So, PrimeTime Television, available on the PrimeTime podcast, but also PWR PrimeTime Extra, now coming to you in podcast form, exclusively on iTunes and the Google Play Store. So what we don't get to, which, if you want to look at this list, it's about 17 topics here for Raw still. We're going to talk about those on Extra, which starts immediately following PrimeTime.
We
here on
even
our
get to the
broadcast
top 2 things on Raw.
on the PWR Primetime Podcast Network.
I got to circle this.
And
so
let's go to Linda now to tell you what's coming up next, and then after that, we'll tell you more about the PWR Primetime Podcast.
Coming up next on Primetime, it's this week's SmackDown Report, Hot News, The 3 Count, and DHHS.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Pro Wrestling Report Prime Time. Damian Nelson sitting alongside David Hero. And it's time now to go to our WWE SmackDown report. This week on SmackDown...
Why are you being so gentle all of a sudden?
I'm trying to be professional.
The arrogance is out of your voice.
The arrogance is out of my voice?
Yeah, that's very reactional of you.
You're calling me... I don't wear arrogance. I think they discontinued that after Rick
Yes.
Martel left.
I'm just saying, you just sound like a different human being.
And people can't evolve, people can't change.
We all evolve. We all change, but
I don't mean from having a tail to not having a tail. I mean,
it's just weird that, like, over a commercial
fine.
break, you
I'll
change.
continue. I'll go back to being a break.
With ears. Thank you.
Well, I hope so. Otherwise, I wouldn't be hearing you right now. Actually, perhaps I don't want to have ears. SmackDown is what we're going to talk about.
Yes. Can we talk about
big
SmackDown?
news out of SmackDown, as there was on Raw this past Monday night. And the first is we now know who is going to WrestleMania to face Bray Wyatt for the WWE World Heavyweight Championship. Let's back up a little bit. As you know, Randy Orton won the Royal Rumble, then relinquished his chance against Bray Wyatt, Keeley saying, "As long as you are the master and I am the slave, I will not face you at WrestleMania." Randy Orton said it to Bray Wyatt. A little bizarre. And then a series of matches occurred with controversial endings that pitted AJ Styles up against Luke Harper last week. AJ Styles defeating Luke Harper. However, shenanigans surrounding that match, but AJ Styles will ultimately get the victory twice over Luke Harper. Then Randy Orton at the end of the show last week on SmackDown burns down Sister Abigail's grave / barn and now gets his shot at AJ Styles for the championship this past Tuesday on SmackDown. A lot of talk to build that up, but it was important to frame the story because it was Randy Orton who got the victory over AJ Styles in a tremendous wrestling matchup this past Tuesday on SmackDown. Randy Orton is going to WrestleMania to face Bray Wyatt for the World Heavyweight Championship. You were not necessarily a fan of this scenario.
No, not at all. AJ Styles should have that spot. He's had the best year out of anybody in the company. But beat John Cena 2 or 3 times.
He did.
He can't beat Randy
James
Orton.
Ellsworth reminded us of that on SmackDown on Tuesday.
You know what I mean?
Well, the two had never faced each other before.
Right.
Did he beat Cena in their first outing? Or was it?
Yes.
Okay. So he'd watched Cena tapes but didn't watch Orton tapes. But here's the thing, and I've said this, I thought it was masterful the way WWE has strung us along for the last several weeks into who is going to face Bray Wyatt at WrestleMania, because it wasn't going to be the Royal Rumble winner Randy Orton. Now it is going to be the Royal Rumble winner Randy Orton, and there will be no third in the match, which you've advocated, because we know now seemingly what AJ Styles is going to be up to at WrestleMania, which we're going to talk about here
we're going to talk about it now. I think it absolutely sucks.
You think the fact that AJ Styles confronted Shane McMahon backstage on WWE SmackDown, which was covered as breaking news during 205 Live, which I thought was great, and confronted Shane McMahon, had to be pulled apart by agents and producers backstage with WWE officials. Now that match is seemingly obvious. It's Styles versus Shane McMahon at WrestleMania. Now, last week on this program, I said, you agreed, I think.
No, I didn't.
We don't need to see Shane in a match this year because we saw it last year and it meant something last year.
It did.
Now, his match with AJ, which is presumably going to be the case this year, I'm not opposed to it, but I'm not salivating over it either.
He's going to have it. That match will put the restraints on AJ. He can't beat AJ Styles in that match because Shane McMahon can't catch him.
But Shane can take anything.
Maybe.
Why?
You are wasting the talents of AJ Styles, putting him in the ring with a non-wrestler.
Were you wasting the talents of Undertaker last year? Were you wasting the talents of Kurt Angle back in King of the Ring 2000, whatever?
It was completely
different. Were you wasting the talents of
different.
X-Pac? Were you wasting the talents of anybody Shane McMahon has faced?
It was different.
Okay.
All those matches were gimmick matches.
Can you answer that?
No, I'm too busy talking about this right now.
Turn the ringer off.
All those matches were gimmick matches. So there was no reason to have AJ and Shane won't be a gimmick match.
What if it is? What if it's a Hell in a Cell match? What if that becomes Shane's thing?
Oh, yuck. I hope not. I did mean that. That would be absolutely terrible.
I don't understand the reasoning as to why WWE feels Shane McMahon needs to have a match at WrestleMania. Keep in mind, I'm a mark for Shane McMahon. However, maybe they had nothing else for AJ at Mania. And this was
No, you put him in a triple threat with Randy Orton and Bray Wyatt.
So many people are opposed to championship three-ways, yet...
Who cares?
Really?
They're still going to watch.
Now, we know the women's match on Raw is going to be a championship three-way. That maybe makes more sense.
That's more than of a three-way. That's like a six-way. Not like that, but you know what I mean. It's every woman on the roster,
SmackDown.
on the SmackDown roster.
Yeah, I was talking about Raw.
How many girls are there? At least 6.
I don't think they figured it out yet because they never said a number.
You got Carmella. You got Mickey. You got Alexa Bliss. You got Becky Lynch. And there's another 1 or 2 in there.
That is true, and we're going to talk about that as well, David Hero, on PrimeTime Extra, the podcast immediately following the Pro Wrestling Report PrimeTime broadcast. It'll all make sense later on, David Hero.
I'm
big
very
announcement later on
with all this right
about
now.
our 19-year anniversary episode next week, where we make a big... We have a homecoming next week. Did you get a date?
I'll find
You're just going to the game, right? Not the dance?
I'm not going to watch the game.
You have to go to the game and the dance.
It's going to be cold.
The Pro Wrestling Report Primetime continues with Primetime Extra, the podcast, immediately following this broadcast.
Coming up next on Primetime, it's this week's Event Center, Hot News, the 3 Count, and DHHS.
The biggest party event of WrestleMania weekend is back. WWE Hall of Famer Kevin Nash presents Shenanigans Orlando. Join Nash and his friends for a huge VIP party Saturday, April 1st. Party with the biggest stars of wrestling at the pub at Point Orlando on International Drive to kick off WrestleMania weekend. Don't miss Shenanigans Orlando, hosted by Kevin Nash. Tickets are available now and going fast at PWRshow.com. That's PWRshow.com.
Welcome to the Event Center. I'm Linda Kay. It's the biggest party of WrestleMania weekend. It's Shenanigans, hosted by Kevin Nash on April 1st in Orlando, Florida. Tickets are still available at PWRshow.com. And Ring of Honor makes its return to Milwaukee on April 28th at Turner Hall. Tickets are still available at papstheater.org. And WWE makes its return nearby in Chicago for Backlash on May 21st. Tickets are still available at Ticketmaster.com.
Thank you, Linda. Lovely Linda Kay. And David Hero, I am so damned excited about Shenanigans.
Are you ecstatic?
I am. There will be no ecstasy at Shenanigans.
Well, I hope not. That's illegal.
It is. But I am ecstatic about Shenanigans because in addition to all the names, Kevin Thorne, Katie Forbes, and
ODB.
The added names just in the last few days.
Oh, yes.
Those. And we now have a mistress of ceremonies for the event, David Hero.
Whoa, you may have a mistress.
Of ceremonies for the event, Shenanigans in Orlando, at the pub at Point Orlando. SoCal Val will be serving as the hostess with the mostest all night long.
She is so much fun. And the fireball shot, the SoCal fireball.
That is only one of several planned events of the same during the Shenanigans VIP
Are we
party.
doing a lot of shots in Orlando?
Well, you ask as if that would be different from your previous behavior at Shenanigans parties.
I've always behaved every year at Shenanigans.
And you define behavior as?
I walk out upright.
Shenanigans VIP party. Tickets moving flying fast at PWRshow.com. With that, folks, let's go to this week's hot news. And wow, some big movement late last week after we aired with some major top name talents in the business. Firstly, 2 Ring of Honor Wrestling last Friday night. 2 Ring of Honor Wrestling debuting in New York at the Hammerstein Ballroom, where Matt and Jeff Hardy, fresh off their TNA Tag Team Championship run. Bit of a surprise. A lot of people were waiting for them to show up in WWE.
Yes, and they still very well could.
As the Ring of Honor Tag Team Champions, because they now are.
I spoke to Matt Hardy this week about some other possible bookings.
You spoke to Matt or Broken Matt? Or did you not know?
I don't know.
Because he's that good.
Yeah. He seemed like the old Matt, but he could have been broken. And we're trying to get other bookings and stuff put together, and it seems like they're not taking any other dates outside of Ring of Honor stuff.
Not taking any other dates.
Yeah.
So currently, literally, they are the Ring of Honor and TNA Tag Team Champions.
Oh, not
because TNA hasn't addressed it on TV.
Well, they will.
They may be tonight.
I mean, they had to relinquish the belts because they weren't
But they
contract.
aren't relinquishing the belts. Like, they can tell the story that they're relinquishing the belts,
Right.
but they're not physically relinquishing the belts. Unless you guys...
But let's not forget the other former TNA star.
Another big name making his debut, I believe, in Ring of Honor Wrestling, unlike the Hardys who had been there for times before.
No, Jeff's never been in Ring of Honor before.
Jeff had not?
No.
Oh, did not know that.
That's what I'm here for.
Perhaps my notes are
I'm
broken.
your fact checker.
This is not Breitbart. Breitbart?
Hubert?
Bully Ray, ladies and gentlemen. Bully Ray now a part of Ring of Honor Wrestling. I think this is a tremendous fit, David Hero.
Yeah, because Bully Ray was supposed to be re-signing with TNA and last minute pulled out. Which is the...
I hear that method doesn't work.
If it's last minute, sometimes.
Bully Ray and the Hardys, now part of Ring of Honor Wrestling. Ring of Honor with a huge pay-per-view tomorrow night, Friday night, from Las Vegas, I believe. And, of course, they're going to be in
At
Orlando.
Samstown.
WrestleMania weekend as well with a big show, which includes several big stars on that show.
We're going to Vegas.
We are.
We are.
For the Cauliflower Alley
For the
Club
Cauliflower Alley.
Absolutely.
May 1, 2, and 3.
Yeah, stay tuned for details on on that. You know, we did a PrimeTime episode.
You got me in trouble there last year.
How did I get you in trouble there last year, David Hero? Fabricate, please.
Well, we went to go visit with the Godfather, and you
at
left.
his place of work.
And you left me behind. I had no way of getting back to the hotel.
Do you want to talk about this? Because if you're alleging that I left you, let's rewind a little bit and talk about who left who first.
You left.
I did leave the venue. Absolutely,
Yes.
I did. And when did I hear from you after leaving the venue after not telling you goodbye? Some 13, 14 hours later?
It's like I lost.
Usually, you just rise right to the top, you know? Get lost in there. But the Hardys, as you talked about, not taking bookings, there are still people expecting them to sign with WWE and appear at or after WrestleMania. It is said and reported that their contracts with Ring of Honor only go through their event in Orlando, Florida on April 1st. So what do you think, David Hero? Let's long-term it. Hardys, they're going to end up
There's no
where?
doubt they go back to WWE.
Drop the titles. And
Like I've said, everyone wants their last match to be in WWE.
And folks, some sad news. Another wrestling legend passes away this week. Outlaw Ron Bass passes away at the age of 68. Bass had suffered from a what would later be found to be a ruptured appendix and did not seek immediate treatment for that ailment, and as a result, suffered his demise.
Now do you understand why I say when you don't feel well, you got to go get that stuff checked?
You know what, David Hero, and I'll be real with everybody, is I had a suspected ruptured appendix just a week ago, ended up in the hospital for several days, and it was a serious matter to the medical professionals. Not as serious to me. I almost didn't even go to the hospital. I ended up being not that, but still something. But this story did hit home for me, at least, because these things can be serious. But our condolences, of course, go out to the family, friends, and fans of Outlaw Ron Bass. With that, ladies and gentlemen, it's time to move into this week's 3 Count. We spend 3 minutes, 1 minute each, on 3 topics. And the first topic this week, David Hero, is another inductee into the WWE Hall of Fame, and he is the ravishing one, Rick Rude. What a class they have this year.
You know what? This might be one of their better classes ever.
Ever?
Well, the best Hall of Fame class was WrestleMania 21. As far as Hogan, Piper, Orndorff, Orton, Sheik, and Volkov.
Yeah, that's a great class.
Okay, that's the best one of all time.
Had class.
But this has been solid. I mean, you got DDP, you got Teddy Long, you got Ravishing Rick Rude, the Rock and Roll Express, Beth Phoenix, which I'm still surprised about that. But yeah,
her husband's in too, so he didn't really.
But and of course it's in Florida, which is where Rick Rude cut his teeth. In Florida Championship Wrestling.
From Florida, or Florida Championship Wrestling.
So it's going to be interesting. I can't imagine the speed. Who's going to put Ricky Steam's going to put in Rick Rude?
I don't fully understand that.
Well, they had a
as
a
long
bunch
as
of
James E. Cornette is able to induct the Rock and Roll Express.
I don't think that's going to happen.
But that'll put me in the building for the Hall of Fame. Otherwise, I'm probably not going.
Really?
Yeah. Cornette, live mic, WWE cameras. He'll be well behaved because he does know how to do that. But at the same time, gold. Gold, baby, gold! I tell ya.
And the talents get to pick and choose who they want to induct them.
Do they?
Oh yeah. King Kong Bundy said if he ever goes in, I get to induct him.
Ladies and gentlemen, our next topic on the 3 Count is
Why do you blow that off?
Finn Balor. Finn Balor returning to WWE live events in-ring action this weekend. Now, last week, David Hero, we speculated as to whether or not he was going to appear on Raw from Chicago. That would not be the case.
I told you it wouldn't.
That would not be the case, but he is back in action in WWE on the road this weekend. What does that mean for Finn? Do you still think we don't see him on TV till after Mania?
After Mania.
Or prior?
After Mania. Because right now there's no here's why he's not going to be on. Because the Universal title is already set. It's with Lesnar and Goldberg.
He'd be in the way of that.
The only way he comes back is to want to challenge for the belt he never lost.
The belt he never lost. That's a good point.
Well, again, that's why you pay me the big bills.
And what you're saying underhandedly is he's not going to get in between Goldberg and Lesnar because he's 195 pounds.
He could be the referee.
Folks, the last thing on the 3 Count is NXT will have a match next week to determine the person who will go to NXT TakeOver Orlando to face Nakamura for the championship, and that match will be between Cassius Ohno and Bobby Roode. Bobby Roode with the big main event spot last time at NXT TakeOver in San Antonio. Who do you think is going to go on to win the match and be in the main event at TakeOver Orlando?
Bobby Roode, no doubt.
Okay, Cassius Ohno, who sent another NXT roster member packing last week on television. Now, you don't think he has the...
No.
You know what it is? Yeah, I think I would agree with you. It's because he's unfortunately living with the real last name of Hero.
That's not his real name. Hero. Stop it.
Have you ancestryed him?
Oh, we've talked.
The DNA part and everything?
We don't discuss DNA.
That's this week's 3 Count, ladies and gentlemen. And before we get to DWHS, which is our final and next segment here on Primetime,
It's the only segment.
I want to make sure you guys are aware of 2 huge things that are coming from us. Firstly, we've talked about it earlier in the episode, but Primetime, as you see, in about a 30-minute format here on Fight TV and YouTube, for a reason we'll get to in a moment. But immediately following Primetime, starting this week, is the all-new Primetime Extra podcast. It's all the news we refuse to use on the main broadcast. We'll talk in
Why
more
did we
discussion.
refuse to use it?
Because we didn't have time.
Oh.
We'll have more discussion and more analysis of them on the Primetime Extra podcast. Now, these podcasts are free. We have 3 separate podcasts right now, David Hero. We've got the Primetime podcast, where you get this episode of Primetime and PWR Primetime Extra. We've got the Feedback Friday podcast, where you get episodes of Feedback Friday each week, and we've got the PWR Reaction Podcast, our live Monday night,
There's that word
and
again.
Wednesday night, and post-pay-per-view shows, all in one place on the PWR Reaction Podcast. Now, David, the easy way to get those podcasts, whether it be on the Google Play Store or on the iTunes podcast store, is simply search PWR. Search PWR. The first 3 things that'll pop up are our 3 podcasts. You can subscribe for free, and while you're there, we need you to do us a major favor. As a matter of fact, David Hero may pay you if you do it. Review and rate the podcast. Review and rate the podcast. We're not saying positively review it. If you hate him, negatively review it. But review and rate
What?
the podcast.
Who hates me?
It's more likely they'll hate you than me.
Not a chance.
And give us a hand in the iTunes and Google Play stores, ladies and gentlemen. Those podcasts free of charge, and you get access to take PWR with you on the go, as you saw earlier with the new Primetime and Feedback Friday and Reaction podcast. Now, with that, David Hero, another big announcement. You do realize that next week, right here on this very air, on this very program, this very show, Primetime, celebrates its 19th year anniversary. March 18, 1998, we started broadcasting here in Milwaukee on television, and we have been broadcasting ever since. Ever since? 19 years on the air, ladies and gentlemen. We celebrate that
You're
next
that old?
week. We celebrate that next week. I started when I was 12.
Jeez.
So with that, David Hero,
Yes.
especially for our audience here in Milwaukee, we are pleased to also tell you that we are returning to the television airwaves in Milwaukee. Did you copy that? We're back on TV.
Fantastic.
They're putting that mug back on television.
That's ratings.
Low ratings, at least for
It's
half
still
of the show.
ratings.
And yes, indeed, folks, since August, since we decided to leave My 24 in Milwaukee, we've been working out some opportunities and taking advantage of the opportunity that has presented itself for us to go back to our roots on Channel 14 in Milwaukee. We'll be broadcasting Friday nights at 9 o'clock p.m. each week. Friday nights at 9 o'clock p.m. It doesn't get any more prime time
No, it does
than
not.
that.
No, it does not. And you're the Friday Night Delight then, aren't you?
All of our broadcasts on Fight TV and YouTube will remain as previously scheduled, but we are very pleased to announce that we are returning to television. Television in Milwaukee. The Pro Wrestling Report goes home next week.
Well, then the show should go home right now.
Then let's go right to DWHS.
You know, everyone's been complaining
Not
about
everyone.
Fastlane. How it was uneventful. It was a mediocre Monday Night Raw at best. What the wrestling fans don't realize is you had to follow an awesome Royal Rumble. And you're now the prelude to going to be a fantastic star-studded WrestleMania. There has to be a little bit of a letdown, but there really wasn't. You got to see Goldberg become the new Universal Champion, defeating Kevin Owens in 22 seconds with the help of returning Chris Jericho. You got to see a streak of 16-0 end at the hands of Bayley.
From the number 2 draft pick, Charlotte.
You got to see Braun Strowman become a star with his match against Roman Reigns.
Maybe it's his music I hate.
I just don't think you like those guys from the South.
You have a problem with small guys? I got a problem with big guys.
No, I don't. Oh, you got a problem with big guys? That's too bad. But it wasn't that bad of a pay-per-view. It was actually rather entertaining.
It was purposeful.
It was, and it told the story. All Fastlane's supposed to do is to get you to WrestleMania,
In the Fastlane.
and that's what they did. So criticize, complain all you want. You all still watch it. There were still 16,000 people at the Bradley Center in Milwaukee. WWE on the road to WrestleMania, Fastlane through Milwaukee, new world Universal Champion with Bill Goldberg, and with that, David Hero has spoken.
And with that, you have, folks, thank you so much for joining us here on Primetime. We look forward to joining you again for our audience in southeastern Wisconsin, back on Channel 14 next Friday night, 9 o'clock p.m. But immediately, starting right now, it's the Primetime Extra with an X, no E.
I got to
podcast.
go back because
We got a lot to talk about. Lesnar's confrontation with Goldberg, Charlotte, Bayley, and Sasha, Owens and Jericho, Neville, the 205 Live division, if you will.
We are not talking about that.
We are going to talk about that.
I don't want to.
Well, you don't have a choice. Primetime Extra starts right now on the Primetime Podcast Network.